If peace is your highest goal in the meditation practice, that's a problem. If peace is what you're seeking in your relationships, that's a problem too. It's a problem because what's available to us in infinite and abundance, we are looking for it in the wrong places. We are looking for peace in the most wrong places, and then we are confused why we are anxious, why there's no peace, why there's so much anxiety. And I want to thank Jasmine from Melbourne, Australia for sending this question and motivating me to create this episode. I'm going to read her question. She says, "Dear Chandresh, could you please talk about building inner peace? I have been listening to your podcast and few others, along with some daily reading and journaling, but I continue to struggle with peace. Could you please talk a little bit about this in your next episode?" Thank you, Jasmine, for sharing this question, and that's going to be the topic for this episode. Finding inner peace and discussing few insights on why peace has become such a luxury, such a struggle. I am Chandresh Bhardwaj, and this is Break the Norms. And before we get on to the topic of today, I want to remind you that I'm teaching a 3-day meditation retreat in 1440 Multiversity in California. It's a quick retreat for 3 days, and I think that could be helpful to so many of you. The link is in the show notes. It's also on my Instagram or my website, cbmeditates.com. So if you're interested, available, and want to go through this amazing experience of meditation, discussions, and getting to know the like-minded seekers in California, please do join me. Honestly, I never ever paid enough attention to this topic of peace. Because if you dig deeper into the Eastern traditions, peace is not discussed on a very, enormous level. It's not the daily discussion in the Eastern spirituality. The daily topics of discussion move from enlightenment to consciousness to chakras to various other things which are highly cosmic in nature, and somehow peace never ever is discussed because peace is also looked upon as the most basic fundamental nature of human being. So that's not discussed enough. It's discussed, but not on an extent that it's being discussed today. I mean, at this moment, there are apps with millions of users who are trying to provide a sense of peace to everyone. There are products out there, there are books, there are online courses, there's so much happening out there to promise just one thing to the human mind, and that's peace. And that's sad. It's sad because peace should not have become this rare luxury item. It should have been just effortlessly available to everyone. And it's tragedy because it's actually available to all of us. But are we being receptive to it? Are we being really mindful, really aware of it? When I started my work, my deepest and biggest ambition was to talk about tantra, enlightenment, consciousness, tapping into that powerful divine energy within all of us. And I started my work with creating signature programs on focusing on this. But when I started coming across the real students, the seekers, I realized that the biggest challenge for everyone is just cultivating inner peace. We cannot talk about consciousness or enlightenment until we are very much away from the most basic and fundamental thing that's available to us. And it made me think really hard. And I thought maybe because I'm in New York and that's why I'm seeing all of this. But the unfortunate truth is, at this point, wherever you go, you'll meet people struggling with peace. The only places that I've not seen struggling with peace is basically the smallest villages the smallest towns, which are still not, digitally consumed, which are still, really connected to each other, really, finding their joy and happiness in little things. And I think that's where we start to go wrong. We start to find our peace in really wrong and complex places. And it's not a surprise that it's actually bringing us so much anxiety. And, this reminds me of something that I heard from Dalai Lama, and it's so beautiful. And I think I need to mention it here. Dalai Lama, spoke about this once. He said, I could have been the most angry person on the planet. I was kicked out from my own country. My people were kicked out from their own country. And we haven't been in our home for decades now. And maybe some of you, all of you know that he's been living in India with his tribe for so many years now. And he said, I could have become the most angry person if I would focus on that part. But I have to make a conscious choice to shift my perspective and count my blessings. Because as a leader, if I don't shift my perspective, my tribe will also not shift their perspective. And that will only cultivate more anger, more anxiety, more restlessness. And if you come across Tibetan people, one of the major reasons they are so peaceful and they are so, they're trying to focus on love and compassion is because their leader, Dalai Lama, he constantly talks about peace and compassion. Because he knows if things go wrong, they'll get really ugly. And that's one of the important points I want to talk with you today. That we got to shift our perspective. Honestly, it's not even worth it to get angry and to lose our peace over certain silly things. I mean, I came across someone, who shared with me some of, her friends unfollowed her on Instagram. And she said, I thought they were my friends. We used to, talk and all that, but they unfollowed me. So what should I do? And I said, for your mental peace, you got to unfollow them as well and move on. You cannot sulk. You cannot build this anger. This is, digital age. People are going to unfollow very casually, and that's fine. It's, their journey. But if you're asking me, I would advise you to move on from this. If I was you, I'll probably won't care. I may have them still in my list and won't care about it. But yeah, if that's important to you, that whom are you following, then you should unfollow and move on from that so that you don't keep building a certain anxiety around it. Shifting our perspective is highly important. And my concern with, the modern seekers is that their peace is very fragile. And why it's fragile? Because they are looking for it and building it in the wrong places. So many of you know that I take retreats to India. And one of the first things that I want to make it clear to all the seekers who want to join is always that, the Himalaya mountains are not going to give you the peace. Hopefully, they'll make you aware of the peace that's already available in you. But if you plan to go to India to look for peace, trust me, it's a country with billion plus people. You will not find peace there. But hopefully, the experiences, the compassion, the warmth, the hospitality, the energy of Himalayas, hopefully all of that will realize you that you got enormous peace available in you. So you don't go to any mountains, don't go to any shrines to look for that peace. It's got to be realized within you. And after that, you could be, anywhere, and you will only cultivate and multiply that peace within. Because right now, even your peace is not your own property, it's borrowed. When I constantly see one person showing up in my talks every week, I take time to speak to them. Why are you coming to every lecture? And because I know for sure if you're coming to my lecture every week, you are also going to other random lectures. And then I have to, request them, stop coming to every lecture because you're coming here for the wrong reasons. And their reasons are always to seek some peace, some, clarity. And my concern is these kind of spiritual outings become the perfect escape for a lot of people. Because this kind of escape is not even discussed. Spiritual escape is not even discussed openly. Nobody talks about it because the ones who are going for it, they don't want to discuss it. They don't want to admit it, that they are escaping something by joining a spiritual gathering. And the spiritual teachers don't discuss it because they don't want to lose the members. But it's so important that one of them has to start this conversation, that you don't have to attend every spiritual talk out there. You don't have to listen to every podcast. You don't have to read every single book. Because somewhere that's going to give you the illusion that peace is going to come from this podcast or from this audio or from this weekend meditation or full moon meditation. And illusions are soft. Illusions are very inviting. They're very tempting because they're comfortable. The real work is very uncomfortable. And that's why no one wants to go there. And we love imagining. We love building up scenarios. And we hope that all of this will bring us peace. And this is where Tantra plays such a powerful role. If any one of you, has done hypnosis or certain interesting visualization meditations and stuff, you'll know that imagination plays a strong role in those things. I've come across, certain clients and students who have gone to different kind of healers or therapists or hypnosis experts, and they have been taught to imagine things. They are taught to imagine on a certain day they are a tree, on a certain day they are ocean, on a certain day they are, a flower. And my concern is, if you build this, trust me, one day you'll forget you're a human and you may start thinking you are just an avocado, which is still not right, which is still not ready to bloom. And that's not fun, right? Tantra says stop imagining and start witnessing, because when you witness, everything starts to change. The strategy of Tantra is to make us realize that everything is available within you. So stop cooking up scenarios, stop imagining things, and start being available to it. And that's something I keep repeating in the meditations, that start being receptive, start being available. Because I don't want to ever give this idea that I'm the one giving you peace. I'm not. You are the one that's being available to the peace. Because if you start depending on me or anyone for peace, trust me, that peace is going to be very fragile. That peace is going to fade away anytime soon. So you got to build the peace that's yours, that's eternal, that will never ever end in the supply. And that's only going to happen if you are really doing the work to look for it within. And I want to share certain insights, certain tips that hopefully will help you cultivate the peace. Number one is, stop living life through your mind, because mind is going to go back into the past or project the future. Mind is never ever in the present moment. So when you think about peace, the mind may bring up certain crazy narratives from the past or start projecting a certain anxiety in the future. But the best part is the past and future do not exist. What really exists is this present moment awareness. And this is something that you will build up with the help of meditation. Your relationship with your awareness, with your present moment, is highly important. And that can only happen through meditation practice. So even if you meditate for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, go for it. Consistency is much, much more important than speed. So don't forget about the speed. You don't have to chant a mantra blindly. You don't have to sit for 2 hours. If you can even start for 5 minutes, even start for 10 minutes, it's better than doing nothing, right? So start living in this moment. And the past can show up, the future can, bring up its own narratives, but you don't have to get dominated by past or the future. And number 2 is something I constantly practice. This is something I didn't learn from any book. This is something I was taught by a lot of amazing, beautiful people who showed up in my journey and taught me patience, calmness in their own way. So these were the people who would trigger me with their own narratives, with their limited perspectives on spirituality, on especially spiritual people. And I often say this, that if any spiritual person makes any sense financially, it just triggers people, because most of the people outside expect that spiritual teachers should be financially a little dumb and a little dumb in many other things. They could be enlightened spiritually, but they should be dumb in other things. And when I used to come across this, as a young boy in his early 20s, it would trigger me, it would challenge my peace. And I realized I cannot be dominated by their perspectives. It's draining me. It's very exhausting. And I had to learn a way to really respond to their, emails or text messages, which were, filled with judgment or anger and sharing their own, limited ideas. So I started using this minimum 24-hour mantra, which basically means that anytime I get an email or a text which is filled with judgment or fear or high level of anxiety, I do not reply to that right away. I sit on it for 24 hours because I don't want to react. And I don't want to react for two reasons. Number one, reactions are going to exhaust me. They're going to drain my energy. And second, very important reason is, when you get to know the human beings, you will know that they are acting the best from their level of awareness. So I started understanding their mindset. I started understanding their psyche. And I realized they're not even doing it consciously. They're not even planning to trigger me. They're simply sharing what they know. And when I started to understand their deep, awareness levels, I naturally had compassion for them. But that compassion doesn't arise, instantly all the time. Sometimes it needs time. Sometimes it needs, a little patience. So I sit on these kind of emails or messages for at least 24 hours. And if it's needed, maybe a little bit more. And I will respond to them only and only when I'm completely free from, the intense emotions of anger or reaction or too much love. I try not to respond to anyone in too much love or too much anger, because both the times I may not be in my complete awareness. And when I say too much love, is there something called too much love? It's basically when you are just impulsively emotional, not really deep in your awareness. Because when you are deep in your awareness, you're really being a mindful witness of the entire situation. So I hope that makes sense. I would love to know if you can apply this on someone, and please let me know, maybe make a story on Instagram and tag me so that I can also share this with other people, how you are going to use this, mantra. And number 3 is understand your own impulsiveness, understand your own triggers. If you know that something or someone triggers you, you got to practice acceptance. You got to understand why this triggers you, because that trigger is a symptom. It's a helpful symptom. It's going to teach you and, let you know a lot about your own psyche, your own awareness. But you have to take a pause. You have to relax, and you have to be respectful and almost, loving toward these triggers, and ask them, okay, I get it. The anger is showing up, the hate, the judgment is showing up, but why it's showing up? Is it my ego? Is it my need to control? Because there are many silly and little things that take away our peace. Trust me, when you're not experiencing peace, it's not something very big that's happening to block the peace. It's very little and silly things that are happening to block the peace. And you got to unlock it. You got to release it. Okay? And limit your time with digital stuff, the laptops, the emails, the social media, the TikTok videos, they all might be great for your work. If you're using it for work, great, give your time to them. And if you're using it just, for fun and pleasure, limit that time even more, because it's not going to add anything. It's good, to consume this once, little bit, maybe half an hour or so. But if you're really consumed by it, it's going to take you away from the present moment and just, suck your creative energy. And then it starts to bring in comparisons. Then it starts to bring in so many other narratives. I mean, I can keep going into this, but the bottom line is very simple. Use your energy effectively and mindfully. And do not forget the most powerful boost up for, cultivating peace. And that's nature. I think Mother Nature is so powerful. And you got to really embrace it. You got to really honor it. And I cannot end the podcast with this specific question. And thank you, Rashveer from Toronto, who brought this question, because this is something I come across in pretty much everyone out there. And this is the question about, how do we cultivate the inner peace and allow our loved ones to walk their own karmic path or just their own path? I mean, I think, Rashveer, you answered your own question within the question itself, because see, the thing is, it's their karmic path, it's their journey. And trust me, my job title is spiritual advisor and spiritual healer, and I cannot heal or advise anyone until they're willing to receive it. The receptivity is very important. And that's why in the meditation, I constantly, put all the focus on be available, be receptive. Because if they're not receptive, not available, they cannot receive it. So we are always going to be surrounded by family members, always going to be surrounded by people and, human beings who are going to challenge us, trigger us, but that's their journey. Again, they may not even know they're triggering you, or maybe they do know they're triggering you and they want to, continue doing it. But it's your job. It's up to you how you respond to it. Never fight with the pig, because you get dirty and the pig loves it. So I'm not calling any family member a pig, but the point is, when you come across someone who's ready to fight with you, and if you engage in the fight, it could be verbal, energetic, physical, whatever, right? If you engage in that ugly argument, you are actually feeding them. You're, giving them the encouragement. You're feeding their ego, and they love a good fight. I think in my life, at least in the past few years, most people have gotten pissed off with me because I didn't want to feed that fight. And I think that's a beautiful feeling when you don't want to feed the fight and just, walk away from it, because it's absolutely not even worth it. This is an episode that, I think I can continue to talk about it forever, but I'll end it now. And I would love to know if there's any follow-up questions, and definitely do share it on your Insta story and tag me so that I get to know how much are you liking it, or if you have any suggestions. But that's all, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone who's going to celebrate it. Talk to you soon. I hope this podcast may travel through the untapped universe of your darkness, light, courage, passion, and so much more. Please do subscribe and be ready to break your norms. I am so excited and very honored to be part of your sacred journey through this podcast.